What is the right and wrong way to bribe the police in Mexico?
First of all, this is for educational purposes only, okay? When I say there's a right and a wrong way to do it, it helps to speak the language, but you could do it, right? Even if you don't speak good Spanish. State police in Mexico run around in great big brand new, like Chevy trucks, painted black usually, right? They're very heavily armed, right? They got the whole intimidation factor on their side. And there's soldiers that traverse the highways. The national police is the army, right? They keep a very high profile, especially in tourist areas. I suppose that's supposed to make everyone feel at ease, but we were driving down the coast near Tampico. But as we passed down the highway there, I remember, I don't know exactly what part we were in. I had to relieve myself on the side of the road. Just so happens a cop drove by and he stops. He said, "How dare you? I can't believe you would do that." It's very, like, there's garbage absolutely everywhere. There's like a dead buzzard over here, right? And plastic trash, like the way some parts of Mexico are very trashy, not all, but some. And I spoke good Spanish at the time. And the way you don't bribe somebody is to offer outright to pay him to make it go away, right? But I stood there and I listened to him, and you be very polite and you sort of yes sir them as best you can, right, while he's talking. And then, right, without moving, without doing anything else, you suggest that there must be some way to take care of this problem without having to go down to the station. Gee, what could that be? You don't reach for money. You don't take out a wad of 20s and start, right? That's a good way to truly get robbed. But you suggest that there must be a way to fix this. If you speak Spanish, you would say something like, "Well, I imagine there must be a fine associated with this. How much is that fine, and how do I take care of that now?" I doubt that every cop is open to being bribed, although most of them are. But if you come about it the right way, they appreciate that kind of commerce. They really do. They really do appreciate it. I had to drive my car back through Mexico, same trip, and my pocket got picked about 2 days before I was set to leave. I got my pocket picked riding a bus in Guatemala, lost my license, got to the border with Mexico. Now, most people don't know this, but Mexico uses what's called the Napoleonic Code or Napoleonic Law. Napoleonic Law is the opposite of English common law that we're all used to when we think of legal system here in North America. You are not innocent until proven guilty. You are guilty until we sort it out. And so the way they control you transiting through their country with a vehicle is that you have to pay a certain insurance license permit in case you kill somebody or wreck somebody else's property. They know that they have you, and it's a bond essentially, right? You're putting money into a bond that is then it's like an insurance premium, okay? But I couldn't get one because I didn't have a driver's license. And so same routine. I said, wow, you know, when I came south, I said, it's not my fault. Obviously, I got my pocket picked. There's nothing I can do. He knew that I had transited south because I had my papers. They only give you 90 days with a vehicle in Guatemala. And so I knew I had to get out. They knew because they had a record that I had transited before. They had a reasonable assumption that I would make it to the other side. And I said, there must be a way to cover the cost of the insurance that I need in order to transit north. I wonder how much that would cost me, right? And these kinds of suggestive questions where you're not being too obtuse, you're certainly not openly trying to bribe people. Like, don't think that you're in a Hollywood film and that you're gonna, sort of John Wayne your way out of stuff. That's very, very offensive to most working people. Could you do it today? I don't know. In some places you can, there's no question. An attorney that I work with actually got jacked hard coming from Belize to Texas. He got hassled by the cops multiple times. I said, but my friend, why didn't you have some throwdown money? Why didn't you have some way to actually just placate these people so that they would leave you alone? And I wasn't there, so I didn't really see how the whole thing went down. But he's an old guy. He's a very wealthy attorney. He wasn't in the right mind frame. It's not the kind of character who's going to take care of those kinds of problems. But my point is, there's a way that life operates. There's a way that people operate and the way they think in these countries. And you have to know that. You have to understand that ahead of time. Very often, your biggest enemy is the cops. If you get your passport stolen in a place like Guatemala, the last place you're going to go is to the police. I remember a woman and her daughter went up to the police and ended up getting hassled even worse. They're lucky they got out of there with nothing bad happening to them. You have to understand that in some cases, it's the officialdom that is the enemy, and there's a way around that. You have to know enough about local custom to make sure you're not a victim of that kind of thing.
Well, how do you get to know that local custom? Because I think what you just said is going to scare a lot of people out of wanting to take that step and travel abroad.
Yeah, understood. It shouldn't, though. And the reason that it shouldn't is because, first of all, things like this are very, very rare. Second of all, understanding that you're not in a place where people are held to the same kind of standards and ethics and all the rest, but that life does go on just fine. Being in with the people in the community generally means actually taking part in their lives. Every place I've gone, obviously after I learned good Spanish, it's much, much easier to find yourself welcome in any given context or any given location. But just knowing people in the area, I mean, if you're friends with a mayor in a tiny town, you're not going to get hassled. It's that simple. Inviting the mayor to your house for dinner is nothing in most of these places. And so it's true that there is a level of risk, right, that exists that we don't think of. I mean, I've been hassled by police in the United States for various silly things like traffic offenses by somebody who wanted to be a tough guy, but you're not bribing your way out of that. No one would even think to do such a thing. I'm not saying that it hasn't happened. I'm saying that it's not your first instinct to do that. It is, quite frankly, a kind of corruption that works rather than, right, a kind of corruption where you have no access to it, which is what we really have in North America, where it's like, you know, these people get to make decisions and like you can take it or leave it, right? You can, like, you're going to take it and like it, basically. That's sort of what we have in North America. It's a much more granular, sort of down and earthy kind of corruption that exists throughout Latin America, and it works. If you need to get your way out of stuff, you can do it. That's my point. It's actually a good thing.
Yeah, the problem with corrupt cops in America is when you run into one, there is no way to bribe them. Like, you're actually just at their whim. You're going to jail. There is no outlets for it. So I'd rather deal with a corrupt cop that can be bought off than a corrupt cop that can't, quite frankly.
Exactly. And my point in telling you these stories is not to frighten you. My point is there's a way around it. There's a way to deal with it. There's a way to navigate it. But it doesn't help to be naive. And while maybe you're not going to learn, fluent Spanish, in the 2 weeks before you head off to your vacation in Mexico or whatever, just be aware that you're in an environment where there are solutions to problems. Those solutions are okay, right? Those solutions exist, and you're perfectly okay to try to explore them as long as you're not being super obtuse about it. And in a way that might also make them nervous, like, yeah, but I don't want to get caught taking this, right? You can't be that obvious about it, right? I think it's a good rule of thumb.
So just out of curiosity, let's say I'm in Guatemala and I lose my passport. What do I do besides going to the cops?
No, you would go to the American embassy. And obviously when you travel, right, very simple checklist, have a photocopy of your passport. Put it in 3 different, put it in this bag, put it in this bag, put it in another bag. Just a photocopy is enough. Nobody is going to take on face value that you faked that, right? If you got to get to a place like, no, my passport really was lifted, I am who I say I am, and keep a separate, right? I always keep separate.
They can look up your passport number. It'll have your picture right
there.
They
can look it up immediately.
Very, very easily prove that
very
that picture
quickly
is legit.
confirm it. Exactly. That's a simple hack for travelers. Yep.